From our State House studio in Montgomery, I'm Todd Stacy. Welcome to Capitol Journal. Today was the 6th legislative day of the 2025 regular session, and it saw a steady flow of legislation in the House and Senate. We'll start in the Senate, where a number of immigration bills were on the floor. Republicans say they want to align Alabama law to complement federal immigration enforcement efforts by the Trump administration. Senate Bill 63 from State Senator Lance Bell would require law enforcement agencies to fingerprint and get DNA samples from illegal aliens in their custody. Senate Bill 53 from State Senator Wes Kitchens would create the crime of human smuggling if someone transports into Alabama someone they know or reasonably should have known is an illegal alien. And Senate Bill 55 from Senator Chris Elliott would change current law to say Alabama would not recognize out-of-state driver's licenses that are issued to people who did not prove their legal status at the time of issuance. Those senators addressed the media, asserting that their efforts are aimed at protecting Alabama and combating crime.
So the question is it going to be a problem for other people that are driving from other states? And the answer is, if they're illegal, yes. And it's designed to make it a problem if they're illegal. I mean, look, there are 19 other states that say, hey, we're going to give you a driver's license even if you have no proof that you're here legally. And it's valid for being able to drive in that state only. Alabama doesn't issue licenses like that. And so to answer your question just as directly as possible, if they're here illegally, they don't have any proof that they're here legally, didn't prove that when they got a driver's license in another state, then we're not going to honor their license here in Alabama.
A lot of them are here doing great work, being good citizens. We're just trying to capture the ones that are committing the criminal acts, doing things of that nature. My bill, actually, we passed it through the Senate in May of 23, so it had nothing to do with what's going on right now with that. But I think the Senate Republicans are working hard in trying to assist President Trump in his goal of securing the border and getting us back to a safe state that we used to be.
It's addressing the issues that we face right now. Coming from Marshall County, we have a lot of issues that we're trying to correct, and I think a lot of the bills that we have seen on the floor today and other bills that we've discussed, the House has a package that they're going to be working on, and I think all of that goes back to the issues that we're facing today in Alabama.
Senate Democrats were opposed to these immigration bills, but they chose not to engage in filibusters that would have dragged out the debate, potentially into the night. Senate Minority Leader Bobby Singleton said Democrats worked with Republicans in an effort to, in his words, catch some of the unintended consequences in the legislation. Singleton also criticized the bills as being more about political theater than meaningful policy, and to appeal to national politics rather than addressing real issues here in Alabama.
It's all about a lot of pomp and circumstances. Even if you look at the driver's license bill, the only penalty in it is a ticket. I mean, why are we pushing bills like this? And just to be able to say that we did something for immigration, to be able to please the President of the United States. I think that we'll see a lot of that going on at the federal level. If we just settle down and take our time, they're probably going to push down law that's going to make us have to do something totally different anyway, just to become in line with what they're doing. As an African American who understand the history of my people that were bought here on slave ships, it's still kind of sketchy as to whether or not the way I get treated on a day-to-day basis, being targeted, in terms of profile and crimes and being blamed for different stuff. So it's hard to sit back and see other races of people go through the same thing.
Those bills all now go to the House. In the House, lawmakers passed legislation aimed to reduce infant and maternal mortality. House Bill 89 from State Representative Marilyn Lands would preemptively extend Medicaid health coverage to pregnant women for up to 60 days while they await formal approval of their eligibility. The goal is to help expectant mothers, and especially the low income, get critical prenatal care.
To really create much better outcomes for Alabama moms and babies. This bill was amended yesterday in committee to sunset it in October of 2028.
It's really difficult in certain situations with maternity to detect some of the things that go on. The process of this with the sunset means that there will be an ability to study it and see if there's a cost-benefit analysis to it that medically, cost-wise, goes with the help for the mothers.
That bill earned bipartisan support and passed unanimously. It now goes to the Senate. State Representative Gina Ross passed her first piece of legislation today. House Bill 102 would allow all students, including those in homeschool and private school, to enroll in dual enrollment courses with the Alabama Community College system.
House Bill 102 would require dual enrollment courses to be available to eligible high school students through all education agencies. It would require each local education agency to award high school credit for the passing of approved dual enrollment courses. It will extend the availability of approved dual enrollment courses offered by local community colleges and universities to high school students enrolled in all local education agencies.
This program has proven to be very successful because, as you know, we're having students finishing high school and getting associate degrees at the same time. So that is something that has really been good, and our four-year colleges have worked along with us with articulation and the agreements that we have out there in the state. So again, thank you for your bill.
That bill also passed unanimously and now goes to the Senate. A big day for State Representative Randall Shedd. The Coleman lawmaker announced he will step down from his House seat and take a position in Senate President Pro Tem Garland Gudger's office, managing constituent affairs. In his last day in the House, Shedd was able to pass one last bill. That was legislation ensuring that prospective homebuyers aren't required to enter into contracts with real estate agencies in order to see homes. Shedd's House colleagues honored him for his service and wished him well in the new role.
But one of the best I've ever served with is Randall Shedd. And when I ran for Speaker, I called Randall and asked him if he would do my nomination because I respected him that much. And we're going to miss you, but we're proud of you. And we know whatever you do, God's led you in that direction. You're going to do an amazing job.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Leader, members of this, both sides of the aisle, I love everybody. So I'll just keep it brief and say thank you for, y'all shocked me this morning, and staff and security and everybody that works and makes the train run in this place, and on time, by the way, Mr. Speaker. You know, it's been a wonderful, wonderful ride, and I look forward to the next chapter.
We'll be right back with tonight's guests.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online at video.aptv.org. Capital Journal episodes are also available on APTV's free mobile app. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page. And you can listen to past episodes of Capital Journal when you're driving or on the go with Capital Journal podcasts. Keep up with what's happening with Capital Journal.
Daniel Pratt was Alabama's first major industrialist and founded the present-day city of Prattville as a self-sufficient manufacturing center. His factory complex, the Pratt Gin Company, became the world's largest manufacturer of cotton gins. Pratt was instrumental in Alabama's transformation from a predominantly rural economy to a more diverse industrial economy, devoted to manufacturing and the production of coal, iron, and steel.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. Tomorrow is, of course, Valentine's Day, but it's also the anniversary of the tragic school shooting in Parkland, Florida that shocked the nation back in 2018. Alabama is one of 20 states that marks this moment as Make Our Schools Safe Day, with remembrance and advocacy towards policies that protect students and teachers. And joining me next to talk about this is State Representative Alan Baker from Brewton. Mr. Baker, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, again, it is a tragic anniversary of that school shooting that really was there have been many school shootings, but that one was a next level. But using it not just for grief, but for advocacy towards safer policies in schools. You have legislation doing just that. I was hoping you could walk us through what it does.
Certainly. Thank you, Todd. I do have a bill that is a part, one plank in this, then effort to try to make our schools more safe. There's different avenues we've used to try to encourage schools, to harden the schools in terms of the access to the schools, the entry points and such. There's a number of things that have been done, but as much so I think there's a lot of other components to school safety, whether it bleeds over into cyberbullying and mental health and just a number of different things is all part of safety for children. And all, but so the bill that I have, this would allow for, not just allow for, it would require that schools over a 5-year period tap into some of the existing sources of money, such as the K-12 Capital Grant Program, the Advancement in Technology Fund, perhaps maybe supplemental funding that would be a part of this, but to use that towards meeting this requirement. This would be requiring each school then to have this would be mobile emergency rapid response system in place. This could be accomplished through a couple of different avenues. One could be such as through a button, which they'd wear this on a lanyard, and once pressing that button, then the appropriate school officials get notified, as well as first responders. This was something that was actually used in a Georgia shooting that happened back in September this past fall, in which there were some lives lost, but many lives saved because of the rapid response in the outside officials, first responders being notified in that incident. So this is something that I think, as each of these school environments, the facilities are all very unique, the footprints are all very unique, and so I think this was something that sort of transcends all the different dynamics of a school environment or the perimeter of that school, allowing then for not just the teachers. A lot of times we think about just the teachers, but this would apply as well to custodians. It would apply such as to a maintenance worker that's perhaps cutting the grass and they happen to notice a strange individual in a trench coat walking with a rifle in hand across the school ground. And so this would I think the more rapid we can have a response, and this isn't just for active shooter type situations, but as well whatever other types of emergency incidents. They actually had in my home county, Escambia County Schools already has this in place. There's probably about 25, 30 schools that already have something like this already in place across the state. But they had an incident in which there was a child out on the playground, not in the classroom, but out on the playground. So sometimes we just think about the school structures, but the teacher was able, once the child was choking on a rock, that while playing on the playground, they were able to press their button and notify the appropriate officials, first responders that came, and the child, was saved and such in that incident. And so it can be used for a multitude of different types of scenarios.
I know things like this cost money, and you said they're already allocated through those funds you mentioned. What's been the feedback from your colleagues? Do you expect this bill to make it through the process?
I'm very hopeful on this, as there's no silver bullet to say, okay, if we then have this in place at a school, then they're not going to have any type of incident.
Right.
So we recognize that, but I think this is a strong step forward. So of the multitude of types of emergency situations that might arise at any given school campus, that this at least allows that opportunity for a more rapid response in regards to that. I did not, some say, well, so you don't have actually a line item dedicated funding for this, and I chose not to do that. I felt like there's some available sources on that. A number of schools already tapped into some of the funding going back to sort of COVID dollars that were around, and used those as means to go ahead and begin to do this in advance of me even coming with this legislation.
No, it's interesting. We'll be following that, and also maybe even a deterrent. If it's known that every school has this system, perhaps it's a deterrent. I want to switch gears and real quick and talk about legislation you had on the floor today, dealing with sales tax exemptions and how the state deals with localities. What does this bill do?
What this does, this will streamline the process going forward. In the past, it's been where if there was a sales tax exemption, there were those bringing bills that they actually had it not only just doing the state sales taxes, but it also bled over down to the locals and also would somewhat force the locals, in regards to not having a choice or decision in the matter, force them to also impose those same exemptions at the local levels, at the county as well as the municipal levels, and which I felt that this was a little bit sort of our encroaching into local turf to make those decisions, that we were getting out of our lane at the state level. And so it was where, with my service on the House Education Ways and Means Committee, Chairman Danny Garrett has been very, very supportive to allow us to tag on amendments to legislation that was coming before our committee to allow for state sales tax exemptions. It wasn't just for state taxes, but for the locals. And so we would have that inserted into those bills individually. So this now will clean that up so we won't have to do it individually, bill by bill. This would be then going forward beginning next fall. With the fiscal year, that now we would be able to have that so that any state sales taxes would just apply to the state and not to the locals. But the locals do have that discretion, authority to be able to opt in. The Department of Revenue has been very good to work with us on this bill as well, and they will be somewhat of a clearinghouse receptacle for being notified and when the locals do opt in on a particular sales tax.
Well, I'm about to be visiting with the League of Municipalities, and I know they will appreciate more local discretion over those kind of things.
Certainly.
Mr. Baker, we're out of time, but thanks so much, and we'll look forward to following up.
Thank you so much, Todd. It's been great.
We'll be right back.
You can watch past episodes of Capital Journal online anytime at Alabama Public Television's website, aptv.org. Click on the Online Video tab on the main page. You can also connect with Capital Journal and link to past episodes on Capital Journal's Facebook page.
Alabama Public Television is your place for quality educational services. Free professional development for educators and child care providers. Access to free curriculum-aligned videos, lesson plans, and instructional resources with PBS Learning Media. And all the PBS Kids programs parents know and trust. Learn something new every day with Alabama Public Television. Visit us at aptv.org/education to learn more.
Welcome back to Capital Journal. This week, local leaders from throughout Alabama gathered in the capital city for the Alabama League of Municipalities Advocacy Day. Joining me next to talk about it are the League's Executive Director, Greg Cochran, and Dothan Mayor Mark Saliba, who serves as the League's President. Gentlemen, welcome.
Well, thank you, Todd. We're glad to be here.
As I said, it was Advocacy Day this week. Saw some footage from it. We reported on some of that. What all went on? What all do y'all pack in to Advocacy Day here in the capital city?
Well, we had a great turnout. I wanted to say that first and foremost. Probably a record year for us as well. But we're excited about it because we provided a lot of great information. A lot of the towns and cities that we represent had voiced their opinions earlier through the year, the topics that they wanted to hear. And so the staff and the league and Greg and them did such a great job of providing that for us during that day.
I saw different panels, saw public safety, healthcare, real things that the legislature are talking about, but it's really cropping up from the city level, it sounds like.
Absolutely, and Todd, we value this Advocacy Day annually to allow our local officials to collaborate with state officials to develop good policies around healthcare, crime, public safety, economic development, building those fundamental pieces that make a vibrant community.
Well, Mayor, I've always said that when it comes to whether it's the legislature, the governor, members of Congress, their best voices to hear from in terms of what's really going on are mayors and other local leaders who hear from their constituents. It's kind of that federalist system. So talk about that. Talk about the importance of that communication from city leaders to the legislature and other state leaders.
Well, of course, I appreciate you saying that because we do think that is imperative. We are on the boots on the ground and we see all of our constituents in the grocery stores and family and friends in the neighborhood. And so we know what their issues are and we know what we have to do or what we need to do to provide the right services for them. Making sure that we have the right funds and the resources to provide those services of what are really important to us. So, mental health, health care, crime and safety programs, education, they're all big issues for our towns and cities.
Yeah, which is interesting because those are some of the issues that have become priorities, not just for the governor, but the legislature. And in talking with them, from the speaker to the pro tem. They talk about how it is coming from the local level. So they are responding in many ways to what y'all are telling them, which I guess is the way it's supposed to work. I wanted to ask you, Greg, y'all have really made a priority of making sure local leaders are properly prepared and trained. Y'all have these training programs that they can go through, academies, so to speak. I'm guessing that has continued and just grown.
We started the program 30 years ago of training municipal officials. Last year, because of that value that we see in that, we passed mandatory training curriculums. So municipal officials have to go through this program to be their best selves, to make sure they're getting the resources and tools they need to provide their communities with all the ingredients of being successful. And we're partnering with the two-year college system. We've been blessed to have that partnership with them. So our online training is through their website, their portal, and that's just going to take it to the next level. So our officials, if they can't make our meetings to our conferences, they can go online 24/7, 365 days out of the year and pick up these topics that they need to be better officials.
Yeah, I was going to say, what's the difference? Does it make a difference in terms of having the resources you need, having the knowledge you need, whether it's a city councilman or a, other local leader? I'm guessing having that training, having that preparation allows you to be more productive, effective as a local leader?
Well, because there are things that change so much from year to year. I think it's imperative, and sometimes we need a little push to make sure that we're staying on top of all of the issues and some of the things that are changing. So it's invaluable to me as a mayor to make sure that I am stayed up on all of those issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I also saw on your schedule, this week was the capital city of Alabama. But coming up next month, you're traveling to D.C., I understand.
That's right.
For, I guess, it's a gathering of a lot of cities throughout the country. Talk about that, because I'm guessing a full slate of delegation meetings.
We have over 100 Alabama officials going to the National League of Cities conference. As you pointed out, all the state leagues go to that. And it gives us a chance then to collaborate with our federal partners to look at federal policies and needs at that level. And we have such a great delegation. We're really blessed, and our senators will have breakfast with them and get the opportunity for Mark and Sherry Sullivan, the mayor of Fairhope, who's our vice president this year, to sit down and talk to them about what types of resources can they utilize from the federal government to make their cities even stronger.
Yeah, well, there's a lot going on in Washington. I mean, we think we're busy here in Montgomery. I mean, think about that. They are just blowing and going up there. We'll talk about that. You'll have that opportunity to visit with, not just the senators, but all 7 members of the delegation. And y'all have had some change in the delegation down in the Wiregrass way.
Well, we have, but we're good, and we've got a great relationship with there. But we look forward to going to D.C. We depend on some of those bigger dollars that we need for infrastructure. Road infrastructure is expensive, and so getting in front of them, stormwater, some of those things that we can ask them for some help with is so vital to our cities.
Yeah, and with some of that kind of in flux right now, it's probably more important than ever to communicate from this local level, hey, we depend on this. And, I don't think y'all are the only ones communicating those kind of things to our federal delegation.
No, when you look at our state and the great job that our state has done in recruiting aerospace technology and space technology, automobile dealers, shipbuilders, it's important to have a strong partnership with our federal and our state policymakers to continue that strong recruitment of these international companies.
Absolutely, and I've been impressed by the growth of the health industry in Dothan with Hudson Alpha and everything that y'all are doing down there. It's been fun to watch. Next time I have you on, we have more time, I want to talk about that. Absolutely. Because I think it's a real interesting development that y'all have really built and grown on.
Well, thank you. And to add on to the federal, it takes both the federal and the state, and we've got great leaders, Governor Ivey and our Speaker Ledbetter and Senator Gudger. I think they're doing a great job, and solving all these problems are not easy. And so we appreciate all that they do for us and at the league, and we appreciate what our federal delegation does. It takes everybody.
It's all about communication.
Yes.
And over the years, I've enjoyed working with y'all because y'all provide that communication, that conduit, and that's the way it's supposed to work. Well, thank you for your time and your availability here. We look forward to having you back on soon.
I look forward to it.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll be right back.
Lowndes County native E.D. Nixon was a longtime leader of the civil rights movement in Alabama. He worked tirelessly to increase the number of registered black voters in Montgomery and was one of the key organizers of several civil rights organizations in the state. In 1945, he was elected as the president of the Montgomery chapter of the NAACP, just 2 years later becoming the state president of the organization. In 1955, Nixon and a group of Montgomery area clergy and civic leaders founded the Montgomery Improvement Association, or MIA. The MIA provided a focal point for activism in Montgomery's black community, and its leaders organized the Montgomery Bus Boycott, in which the city's black citizens refused to ride public transportation for an astounding 381 days. Long overdue recognition was finally bestowed on this early civil rights hero when the Montgomery County Public School System named an elementary school in his honor in 2001.
That's our show for tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night for our Week in Review show at 7:30 here on Alabama Public Television. For our Capital Journal team, I'm Todd Stacy. We'll see you next time.